National Party leader Christopher Luxon is with me. Hello to you.
Good morning, Chris. Good to be with you.
And you as well. The National Party has panned the government's emissions reduction project that would see or subsidise this electric furnace for NZ Steel to the tune of $140 million. Why is that a bad thing? Is this just because it's corporate welfare at the end of the day?
Yeah, I just think to me the government's got its priorities just so wrong. I mean, it's quite outrageous. Last week, the government couldn't find an ability in the budget to give people tax relief, hardworking Kiwis tax relief, and instead it's taking taxpayers' hard-earned money and it's actually giving $140 million, gifting it to a foreign-owned, highly profitable multinational company. And to me, that just seems the priorities are all wrong. I commend what New Zealand Steel's doing. They're Australian owner BlueScope, but they've got plenty of cash reserves. They've got plenty of. They're highly profitable, and they can do that themselves.
So why would the government do this? Is this about putting a stake in the ground to say that we're serious about climate change? Because one could say the government's not necessarily business friendly, but it is in this case.
Well, it's just corporate welfare in the extreme, and it doesn't make sense to me when you've got a company that's making $2.7 billion profit a year that it can't digest or make that investment itself. It's in the interests of these big corporates to move away from fossil fuels into cleaner energy because it gives them often in this case they're going to be paying a higher carbon price anyway ultimately. So that's the ETS scheme working as it should do to encourage them to actually make the investments themselves. And this is a company that has operations in America and Australia and New Zealand and is using this technology in other places. So for me, it's just an odd move. It doesn't make sense. I mean, at a time when New Zealanders are really hurting and need help through the cost of living crisis, you're basically going to give people who've paid their taxes, you're taking their money and giving it away to a big corporate like this that can do this anyway and should be doing it anyway.
What did you like about the budget announcement last week? What did you think that Labour said that's quite a good idea?
Well, actually, I was very supportive of the investment in defence forces. We've had huge amounts of attrition come out of our defence forces, lots of them leaving. I thought actually fixing up their salaries and their wages was really good. I think the other part to that was actually also fixing up some of their infrastructure, namely around housing and the basics like that. So just, these are people that actually do a great job serving New Zealand. We need to value them, and I thought that was something I was very supportive of.
If you were in charge then, what major budget announcements would you have made?
Well, I think for us, we wanted to see tax relief. We really believe in this concept of indexing tax thresholds. That would mean that an average couple on an average salary would get $1,600 back, each and every year. We also believe in doing childcare rebates for up to $180,000 of household income, and really that would give people up to $3,900 a year. Those are things that I think actually puts money back in the pockets of Kiwis. And in the childcare rebate, we're funding that by actually stopping consultancy spending, which is really a clever way of doing it. So I think those are the things I really wanted to see. I also wanted to see a much more disciplined approach to government spending. That's what you would have got from us. We will continue to increase spending in health and education. But there is a lot of money. When the government now is spending $137 billion, up $61 billion, up almost 80%, $28,000 per household in this country. And the question we've got is, have we had an 80% improvement in public services? Has each Kiwi household had $28,000 worth of added value brought to them through the spending that the government's got? So, tax relief, disciplined government spending, and then most importantly, Chris, the way we're going to deal with this problem that we've got economically in the hole that we're now in is we have to have a plan to grow the economy and actually get more revenue through the front door and grow the size of the economy rather than just playing with taxing and spending and borrowing, which is what this government's doing. It's borrowing more, spending more, and it's taxing more.
Interesting you say that. I was speaking to Leanne Watson from the Canterbury Employers Chamber of Commerce, and she said the government, the budget was pretty vanilla and didn't do much to stimulate growth when it comes to businesses. She wasn't asking for handouts, but she was just saying there was a lack of confidence as to what the government actually announced and what meaningful change it would make for businesses. I suppose she's talking about some of the red tape policies that businesses face.
I think there's sort of 5 things you do there. One is you've got to continue to invest in education so that we've got the people going forward that can access higher paying jobs through selling higher value New Zealand products and services to the world. You need to make sure that you invest in infrastructure. As you say, make sure you remove red tape and make it a business friendlier environment. I think there's a lot of work to do around research and development and science so we can create higher value products and services to sell to the world. And then you need strong international connections. And so, New Zealand doesn't have a free trade agreement with India, yet Australia and the UK and EU and Canada have either closed them or about to close them out with India, and have been doing all of that work right through the middle of COVID. And yet New Zealand just hasn't been circulating out in the world, opening up those opportunities for New Zealand exporters, which is how we make our money. So today we have the biggest current account deficit in the developed world, meaning the amount of money we earn versus the amount of money we spend as a country. We've got a huge deficit there, and that's what's causing some of the anxiety from the international analysts around our economy.
I think the problem that a lot of people have with the budget is that it's, pretty vanilla and not a bad budget, but there was nothing in it, I think, that's going to reduce the cost of living. I think that's what people were worrying about, is the fact that how can we reduce how we're spending or reduce the prices at the grocery store. Anyway, I need to move on. Excuse me. This announcement to reinstate the $5 prescription fee by Nicola Willis initially, was that a bit misguided? Because that was an easy attack from the media. What did you mean to say?
Well, what we were opposing is the universality of it, right? So basically everybody in the country gets free prescriptions, $5 free prescriptions. So the point was that's coming at $640 million cost. Does someone like me, who can actually quite afford to pay my own prescription fees, need to get that? No, I don't. And so my view was that it should be a very targeted approach, and that's something that Shane Retty and I have been talking about since before Christmas, was that we were looking at our own health policy to say, actually, there is a real need. We don't want that to be a barrier or a reason for why people don't pick up the medicine for themselves or their kids or their parents. So generally, you start with the people who have community service cards. You'd start with the Super Gold cards. You'd obviously maintain and keep that. If you spend more than $100, it's free for everyone because you've obviously got high medicine needs and medical needs. But by having it more targeted, we could have actually, that's money that you could be using doing something else. And healthcare is one of those areas where there is just so many needs and so many shortfalls. But, that cost might have been, you could have still freed up $500 million, and actually deliberately targeted it to the people who really need it, low-income New Zealanders who really need that free prescriptions, but not for everybody. I don't need to pay it. I'm quite comfortable and capable of doing that myself.
Would you say the same things when it comes to tax cuts for those that are, earning the top tax rate? They don't need a tax cut?
Well, look, the point there is that, we're in a place where we've got a government, because it's spending so much, it's having to fuel its addiction to spending by actually cranking up taxes across the board. You've got, David Parker, telling you now, they are noodling away at a capital gains tax, a wealth tax, or an inheritance tax. Something's coming. It's coming after, if they're lucky enough to get back into power again, it's coming. And I can tell you that is not a great thing for New Zealand, because as soon as that happens, as we've seen in Norway, as we've seen in France, people leave the country very, very quickly or reorder their affairs, and that's not good for New Zealand. The top 2% of income tax earners already in this country pay 26% of the tax. So we have a progressive tax system. We have something that I think, the Treasury says it's progressive and it's fair, and I think that's important.
Just finally, in Christchurch, one of the biggest issues facing us at the moment is the chlorination of Christchurch's water supply. The government over the last 3-4 years has said that we can have a special exemption given the fact that the water that we drink is from the aquifers, used to be pure, had chlorine in it, and it was supposed to be got rid of years ago now. The government's changed the goalposts with this new agency and said, no, your chlorination is there to stay. This is a massive story in Christchurch. Nobody from the government's fronting on this issue. They've basically given Christchurch residents the middle finger, saying, we've listened, but we haven't really. What would you do in this situation? Because it's a big story here in Christchurch, Christopher.
I fully understand the issue, and having come from Christchurch, well aware of it as well. Look, the bottom line is water standards have been moved around. They've sat with councils, they've sat with the Ministry of Health, and they haven't always been set and defined, and they haven't always been enforced. We've all been supportive of saying, look, let's get a proper water regulator like we have in other countries. So Tamara Arawai is that regulator. But my bottom line is that they should be coming to the people of Christchurch, and I think even Phil Major and Sam McDonald have called for that, to say, look, we should have them fronting to explain the justification for why they think there's a need to put chlorination into the water. And I think that would be the logical first step. But ultimately, you've got to have a water regulator that's got a justification for it, but they should front with the people of Christchurch and say and share their justification for why they see the need for it, and actually be explaining it and engaging with the people around why they think it's necessary.
Just finally, when you look at all these political polls, on Stuff and NZ Herald, saying that Nicola Willis is nipping at your heels and that your poll results, to be fair, but personal poll results are not that good. Do those comments hurt?
Oh, look, I mean, it's just part of it. If I went back and looked at everything commentators had said from when I first came into politics and took on the leadership to today, it's always quite interesting. The commentators will say what they want to say. The bottom line is the country's heading in the wrong direction. We need a leader who's actually got experience in turning things around and getting results. That's my background. We've got a very unified caucus. We've got a fantastic team. I think people can see that. I've put the right people in the right places on the right assignments, and we're very excited and very focused on making sure we do the job and actually get to change the country come October 14th.
So there's no rumours in your circle of friends of somebody suggesting that Nicola Willis is nipping in or any of this kind of nonsense?
No. And I get the media want to create that story, but the bottom line is, I can tell you honestly, that's just not happening. So, we've got a very unique caucus. Yep.
Just thought I'd ask. Christopher Luxon, National Party leader, have a great week. Nice to see you.
Will do. Take care. See ya.